The U.S. is exporting record amounts of oil, gas, and diesel. That's right, refined gasoline and diesel processed through our refineries, and it's not going to stop. It's going to increase by 10 million barrels a day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Political Professor.
As the world's largest customer, with more than $650 billion in spending last year, the United States government is putting our money where our mouth is to strengthen accountability for climate risk and resilience.
The Biden administration has approved plans to build the nation's largest oil export terminal off the Gulf Coast of Texas, which will add 2 million barrels a day to the U.S. export capacity. The approval was filed in the Federal Register a day after the United Nations Annual Climate Conference. Oh, the hypocrisy continues.
We're proving that good climate policy is good economic policy.
This offshore oil export terminal is the first of four. Will enable continued growth in U.S. shale production, which I think is good, but they add, and in global consumption. They go from extraction to export, or extract to refine to export. No mention of local consumption. Ahead of the UN climate conference in Egypt, the White House stated, President Biden has renewed United States leadership in the fight against climate change. The president is delivering on his day one promises, positioning the United States to achieve our ambitious climate goals. Well, in the Maritime Administration's 890-page impact statement, it said, oil processed at the seaport would increase greenhouse gas emissions equal to 233 million tons of carbon dioxide per year.
To reestablish the United States as a trustworthy, committed global leader on climate.
They keep asking the oil industry expand its production and build more refineries, and saying we need to phase out fossil fuels at the same time, telling the world to stop producing, telling Americans we're going to stop producing, campaigning on no more drilling, publicly shaming the oil companies, issuing man letters, scheduling oil meetings with oil executives and not showing up, on and on.
No more subsidies for fossil fuel industry, no more drilling on federal lands, no more drilling, including offshore, no ability for the oil industry to continue to drill, period. Ends. Number one.
I don't think the federal government should give handouts to big oil, asking them to eliminate those subsidies, to stop issuing new oil and gas leases on public lands. For U.S. oil companies that are recording their largest profits in years, they have a choice. One, they can put those profits to productive use by producing more oils, restarting idle wells, or producing on the sites they already are leasing. Giving the American people a break by passing some of the savings on to their customers and lowering the price at the pump. Or they can sit back, ship those profits to the investors, and while American families struggle to make ends meet. Oil and gas industry is sitting on nearly 9,000 unused but approved permits for production on federal lands. In fact, we produced more oil domestically in my first year in office than my predecessor did in his first year.
Meanwhile, behind our backs, the U.S. is quietly shipping out the most oil and refined petroleum that we ever have. In the summer, when Biden was preaching about lowering our fuel prices, they allowed over 168 million barrels of refined gasoline to be exported between April and September. During those same months, we exported nearly 251 barrels of diesel. While Americans suffer high inflation because of the cost of diesel used to transport goods, build homes, and so on, the Fed is hiking its rates to combat that inflation. As a result, economists expect nearly 1.2 million people to lose their jobs next year. Let that sink in. This is the seventh Fed rate hike, adding $425 in interest for each $10,000 borrowed, and mortgage rates over 7%, double the rate in January.
If we're going to win this fight, every major emitter nation needs to align with the 1.5 degrees. Every nation needs to step up. The United States is acting. Everyone has to act. It's a duty and responsibility of global leadership.
China's emissions exceed all developed nations combined, and we will never meet a goal if we can't get China on board, and we will never do that. As Americans suffer, this administration is funding green energy projects in other countries and allowing the export of our own energy.
To invest $2 billion building new solar projects in Angola. A $500 million package to finance and facilitate Egypt's transition to clean energy.
The hypocrites are expanding the drilling and fracking while building massive deep sea ports to sell it all off, while blaming Russia and telling us we need to do our part, that we need to suffer to achieve a goal Trump, like him or not, was already on his way to do. All the while, we became a net producer and didn't have to pay for China's pollution, as Trump reduced the carbon tax to match our pollution and not the world's. Something Biden reversed his first day, costing American companies and therefore the consumer. In December of 2020, Trump's EPA finalized the first greenhouse gas emissions standard for aircraft, resulting in a record reduction of the most greenhouse gases in American history. The EPA administrator, Andrew Wheeler, stated, "The U.S. leads the world in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and today's historic action will continue this trend. This is the fourth concrete regulation that the Trump administration's pragmatic approach to climate action that has produced meaningful results without unnecessarily sacrificing American jobs or important domestic industries like our aircraft manufacturers. This administration is choosing a path that is destroying our economy, jobs, costing Americans money. This will all be prevalent in 2023 as we start to see serious economic damage from their decisions and their spending, and more than we already are. $1.7 trillion just passed in the lame duck right before the Republicans are about to take the House. Milk and bread have doubled in price, and it's only going to get worse. Welcome to Biden's America."